Our darshan for this morning is a man who is both gentle and strong, quiet but wise. It is a pleasure to be able to share the bima this morning with Gary Spivack.
All my friends told me not to run away. Okay. I am obsessive compulsive about getting assignments done in advance. So when I was home after a brief visit to the hospital in December, and as recently as a day ago, I jumped on the opportunity to write and prepare my drash ahead of time. While I felt really good about preparing the paper so far in advance, I became aware of this nagging feeling that it wasn't quite right and it needed more effort. Then I happened by the kitchen table where Linda was reading an article by Dennis Prager which posed the question, can halacha ever be wrong? Well, he came to no particular conclusion and saw it as an either-or matter between orthodoxy and conservative views. A kernel of thought entered my mind concerning the application of the code and whether or not was blind acceptance what gave rise to the misapplication or wrongness that Prager identified. Parshat Mishpatim provides significantly more detail establishing legal, contractual, and moral relationships between people. It begins with a discussion of the treatment of the Hebrew slave, specific laws dealing with murder, personal injuries, property, theft, moral offenses, how justice is to be served, the impartiality of judges, and the observance of the Sabbath year. It ends with commands to observe the 3 pilgrimage festivals, and closes with a plea to observe all of the ordinances and laws put forward so that people can receive a special blessing avoiding sickness, injury, as well as God promised to clear the land of any enemies before the Jewish people. Rabbi Shlomo Riskin emphasizes that the point is not to blindly follow the laws and precepts. He stated, and then the Almighty reveals the secret. If only you would listen, surely listen to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is righteous in his eyes, then all the melez I inflicted upon Egypt would not fall upon you. God is not satisfied with our seeing. God is waiting for our listening. Rabbi Bernhard brought this to our attention just a few weeks ago, and he told the congregation that God communicates when we are engaged in silent prayer and are made capable of seeing and hearing what is going on around us. He reminded us of the statement in the Torah in Parshat Yitro that the Israelites could see and hear thunder, such is the power of silence. This parshat requires more than just a casual reading. In reality, it sets forward a prescription for living and working together in a community in a civil manner. It is this parshat which gives life to Craig Taubman's song called Where Heaven and Earth Touch. Perhaps it's only in a dream, somewhere heaven and earth touch. I want to believe in a better day. I want to believe in a better way. What better place for heaven and earth to touch than creating a just and humane society? Interestingly, our ancestors appeared to be unsure or anxious in this undertaking. Twice the Israelites tell Moses, you speak to us and we will obey. They gave their voice assent to the acceptance of the 10 Commandments in Exodus 20:15, and then repeated the same phrase in this week's Parsha, Exodus 24:3-7. I am neither an attorney nor am I a biblical scholar. However, what I believe I do know something about is that there are rules that govern the relationships where I work. I believe in the power of relationships and can see the Torah in many management philosophies. I am fond of quoting Ken Blanchard, who embodies my own philosophy, which calls for a team or community approach to solving problems. Blanchard recognized that people needed a common set of principles upon which they could rely and clearly identified consequences when they failed to live up to the set of agreed-to principles. They need a goal to strive to achieve. They need to have something useful to do. Each contribution, no matter how small, must be recognized, and achievements, like life cycle events, need to be celebrated. The keys to the achievement of a just and holy society were likewise based on the establishment of specific goals, definition of acceptable behaviors, and achievement based on an agreed-to set of principles governing how the members of the community related to each other. Rabbi Brad Shevard-Artson, in his book entitled The Bedside Torah, examines some of the same themes of cooperation and achievement of goals by a community. He states that periodic peaks are essential, meaning revelation, if we are to be reinvigorated, reoriented, and rededicated. But we do not live on peaks. The air is too thin, the wind's too brisk to sustain human life, family, and community. So we need a religious orientation that sustains us amid our concerns for security, education, and relationship. Life begins after the revelatory moment passes, when the high is over. Judaism has always insisted on translating philosophy into action. Today's Torah portion insists that our deepest convictions find articulation in deeds and cooperative behavior. But we saw these statutes before in Parshat Noah. At the end of the flood story, God establishes a covenant to not seek to destroy the earth or its inhabitants again. However, God instructs Noah to establish a set of laws to govern humankind. The Noahide laws prohibited blasphemy, idolatry, illicit sexuality, murder and bloodshed, robbery or theft, and eating flesh from a living animal. After the flood, the Noahide law added this last prohibition. It banned a very cruel practice for keeping food fresh. The establishment of these laws, however, also required the establishment of a form of a judiciary, and as noted in the Chumash, punishment is now the responsibility of humankind. A judiciary must be established to correct the condition of lawlessness that prevailed before the flood. Comments on Sanhedrin Tractate 56a by Schachter et al. Indicates that these commandments may be regarded as the foundation of all human and moral progress. Judaism has both a national and a universal outlook in life. In the former sense, it is particularistic, setting up a people distinct and separate from others by its peculiar religious law. But in the latter, it recognizes that moral progress and its concomitant divine love and approval are the privilege and obligation of all mankind. It is also generally accepted that the Noahide laws were embodied in the Book of the Covenant as reiterated at Sinai. However, many commentators, including Maimonides, drew the conclusion that all of humankind is bound by the Noahide laws. Jews, however, have a further obligation to fulfill the 613 mitzvot. Some even argue that Adam and Eve were governed by similar laws, although not articulated directly as such. Our Chumash identified in chapter 2, verse 16 in Bereshit as giving rise to the Noahide laws that would be established later. The verse states, "And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden you are free to eat, but as for the tree of knowledge of good and bad, you must not eat of it, for as soon as you eat of it, you shall die." Maimonides concurred, implying that 6 things were commanded to Adam in that phrase. They included prohibitions against idolatry, blasphemy, adultery, murder or bloodshed, robbery, and in addition, Adam was commanded to establish a just system of laws and courts. In short, the connection to Adam implied that they were established as part of a system of natural mores not explicitly directed by God. We had to wait for the rededication and giving of the Torah at Sinai for the lasting codification of laws, and more importantly, the introduction and tempering of the laws with the concept of human dignity. There is one other codification of laws that is worth mentioning here. That is the laws of Hammurabi, a ruler in Babylon from 1795 to 1750 BCE. Hammurabi established some 282 laws that are similar to the laws given at Mount Sinai. There are 2 major differences that are noteworthy. First, it begins and ends with prayers to the pagan gods. And second, the code established a range of redress to individuals depending on their station in life. The wealthy were entitled to greater remuneration in civil cases than others. This is in contrast to the Mosaic law that was established by God and applied to all of humankind. The wrongness identified by Prager is not a two-dimensional either-or choice as posited by him. It all comes down to the application of the law in a way that recognizes human dignity and assessing consequences that are appropriate to the damage done to the victim. Barry Goldwater many years ago once said that extremism in the pursuit of liberty is no vice, but the blind application or pursuit of a yes-no conclusion gives rise to intolerance and bigotry. We have seen this all too often in clashes between the Haredim and the secular in Israel, in the terrorist attacks against people who do not believe in a particular way, and in the notion that if you're not with us, you're against us. The rabbis are right. We have to actively engage our minds, our eyes, our ears, and mouths to make the connection to the covenant so it can come alive for all. Shabbat Shalom.